Hello and welcome back to the channel and a new series of sorts. Now in this one we're going to be answering the question of how long it takes to build a course, and particularly one that gets tour worthy status. Now there's a big caveat to that. First of all, it's very much dependent on the type of course I'm building, so how involved it is, difficulty level plays a factor, how precise I need to be with that, how involved the planting style is, how much I care, if it's a contest course for example versus standard like just for me course. Um, but it's a question we get asked a lot, and I thought was worthy of looking at. Andre, Crazy Canuck 1985, had a little look at this a while ago, and he didn't quite finish it through. Hopefully, this one goes a little bit longer, but we'll see. As for the format of the stream slash series, it's going to be a mixture of live streams when I can and videos when I can't, because I think both will work pretty well. Sometimes the videos might be time lapses, sometimes it'll be me talking through. Really depends on kind of how I can make those work. So this would have been all done in episode 1, so hopefully you've watched that. But if not, go and check out the video on the channel. And we're going to leap straight in with 4, which is an uphill 176 odd yard par 3, so playing around 187, so we want to bear that in mind. We are going to start our timer, if I can remember where I've put that. So I have to go into, you can spot the professionalism. There we go. So it should be starting. Now with this one, I deliberately wanted to choose there's a number of reasons why I think this series should work quite nicely. Basically, if you could have possibly chosen a course style to do a quick tour-worthy course on, it would be kind of a Parkland, like kind of cozy golf. They don't really need to be too involved. I'm deliberately making it kind of municipal in nature, whereby I'm not really going to be too intricate with the bunkers or shaping or planting, so therefore it all works pretty neatly. And we're going to have an apron around the front because you always want that on a par 3, just in case people are running it. Something like that. I always like tracing out with measure tools where you possibly can do. I find it really helps visually, for me at least. We could have fairway down the back, but I don't want it to run off, so I'm happy with having just rough there. Let's do. One thing I know I should do is use fewer spline points so that I can adjust them all more easily, but it's hard to break habits of a lifetime. Okay, slightly larger green than I might have wanted, but it's uphill, so it's not necessarily a bad thing. And I'm kind of tempted to have a false front with this. I will have done it on the previous hole a little bit as well, but that's more off one side. And I can mount that up a little bit more. Yeah. Let's put in some tee boxes as well. Now, there is every chance we're going to be interrupted by children because they are having their quiet time, but they're not really great at it. Spot those one in front of the other. And then we will add a little fairway spline. So what we're going to do first of all is really just go through as many hole ideas as we possibly can do. And what's quite nice about the timer is it's going to keep me like making sure that I'm going relatively quickly. The intent of this is not to do it as a speed run, i.e. how quickly I could possibly do this. More like how quickly can I do it, like going at a decent pace when I'm not compromising too much on what my standards are. Keep the transitions. Okay, we're going to pop some secondary light rough. I'm going to go to 33 we're going with this. So yeah, of the style of course you could try to do for a quick-ish tour-worthy course, I think Parkland is probably, or like the style of course I've got does lend itself well to this. Because the bunkering's not going to be very involved, really. It's kind of just placeholder. For those of you over in the States, this is kind of our sort of municipal course style. Like, it's not trying to be particularly fancy. It's just decent golf. Now, I still want to make it strategically interesting, but I'm also going for a relatively easy course, which again, those are easier to design for because you don't have to be so careful with where you're placing houses. Do you want to just in front? That'll look all right. I think might need to go just a little further back. There we go. Now for the first pass, what I'm tending to do is I just want the holes roughly in the right places and doing the right things. And I want to kind of have a feeling of what is the type of course we're building. Now it's generally pretty simple. So here we're going to have a front to back, back to front green. I'm not going to do a ton of sculpting just yet, but we will bring this up. So a lot of this is just click and drag just to get the slopes in roughly the right places. Actually quite a lot of space over that front bunker. That thing, that works. And get this there. Question is, do we want a false front on this? 175. Oh, probably a small one. Anything with doing this with rays is you can end up with some really weird slopes. But that'll sit pretty nicely. Doesn't need to do anything crazy. I might lower down this side a little bit more. So we'll start doing some what you might term as macro sculpting, or like big picture, where the land just just making sure the land moves as you would want it making sense. So I want it feeling like everything is going this way, which certainly that green is doing. Okay. And then we'll come back and do the finer detail stuff later. I haven't got a clue how I'm going to sculpt the bunkers yet. So that one's kind of sat down naturally. We'll work it out. What I want to do is not necessarily have a particularly detailed way of sculpting bunkers. Like, I just want it to be quick and relatively easy. I might just be running some flattened brushes down, for example. Or we might just do it by rays. And like lots of this stuff, you can go relatively quickly when you know what you're doing. I know that I'm also going to tidy it all up later. And bunkers on these sorts of courses don't tend to have sand flashed up. They don't tend to be too deep. So we'll try and stick with run that around there. Apparently a little bit bathtubby. Raise down. I'll probably do it at the moment. And then we might just build out a hill here. And that can tie into the next T. So all of these little moves are just generally getting the land doing what I kind of want it to. I didn't really go into this hole with much of a vision of how I want it presenting, other than that I know I want it working that way generally. Cool. And we can soften all of the green contours easily. I think that frames pretty well. One thing we are going to do is we're going to lower this little bit of land behind it. Just because when you're on the tee, all I want you seeing is the green, really. Yeah, that'll work nicely. Okay, and we're going to say, so that whole idea on rough sculpting, we're looking at 8 minutes. Pretty good. Okay, 5. We're going to come, one of the things I wanted to do is prioritize like short green to tee walks. I think that's generally a good thing to prioritize anyway. Now, in my head, these episodes are going to go for around 20 minutes. So I want to get 20 minutes worth of work done. When it comes to planting, etc., I will go to time lapses. But for whole ideas, I think it makes sense to just keep it here. Now, we have a question to deal with, which is how wide we want our fairway and whether we want it to join with this one. I think probably not, but I like where that is. This could be quite a narrow one anyway. 217, so we definitely need a bit of fairway there anyway. And this one could tuck in a little more. And then that gives us a bit of space. That's the. So what do we want 5 to be? It feels to me like the land, yeah, the land is dropping pretty significantly here. Like this feels like the chance to do something a little bit more interesting where we have just a disconnected green of sorts. So I'm kind of seeing fairway stopping here, restarting here just a bit lower. Like this becomes dead ground for one reason or another, whether it be planting or just because. You see these sorts of things on unis. One of the beauties of also taking on like a relatively cheap course is like they often do weird things just because. So we might do that. Okay. All I'm doing at the moment is getting my rough fairway width in. I want to know how close we are to the next hole. We could also plant a tree, or at least a couple here, which would separate the fairways. Let's go for that as well. At the moment, all of the trees that I've chosen are just because. I kind of want this autumn look, just because at the moment it's autumn time, and I always think when you can pull that off, it looks great. It is a slightly more invested style of planting. But there we go. That will then mean that those two don't look too close. They probably look a little close from here. I can fix that. Okay. So off the tee, we're going to want relatively minimal bunkering. I wonder whether you just go staggered on this one. I guess it kind of depends. Let's start with the green. What if we did that sort? I'm trying to think of shapes I haven't really done yet. So this one's more straight on, kind of 45-degree angle, straight on. So this one's very much going to be at grade. So that means there's not much land movement in front of the green. Or rather, the green itself isn't raised up. I like the idea of one bunker. The question is which side. So off the tee, people are going to come down this side if they possibly can do. Maybe we go for a bunker here. I'm thinking of this for the CC level, really, which is kind of the easier end of the spectrum on the TGC Tours levels. Now, for those guys, they're going to have variable driver distances, so I don't want to put all of the hazards at kind of like the same distance. This one pinches down gently. We could have a hazard down here as well. Oh, controller's run out of battery. Always a good sign. So you get to see warts and all with this. Okay. Controller's back. We could stagger. Because actually this is going to be quite a receptive green. I don't mind you hitting a longer club in. Put a little bunker in here as well. And then I think maybe no bunkers. Or just like one by one side. Let's go with no bunkers for the moment. We're going to pop. Didn't like that at all. Again, really rough shapes for the moment. Like they're just filling spaces. And I want some kind of slightly ragged edges, but I'm not really getting them at the moment. Nope. Let's try if we spin the brush. A lot of it's kind of dependent on how quickly you move it, and it just takes time. Yeah, that would be all right. Pop our fairway down. Getting 2 holes roughed in this short session would be good. And using loads of spline points. Really need to get used to using fewer. You notice one thing I tend to do is dig bunkers into the fairway. Like, generally a good thing to do is to try and make your bunkers impact the line of play as much as you can. If you put bunkers off the side of fairways, they don't have quite this. Right, light rough, 33. I'm also not averse to playing God on this plot, which means like just changing things because. Now, question has to be, do we want this to be hills or like mounds or things, or a dip? I think the answer is both. Plus, if I build up a little hill here, that means I can sight that tee on a hill and improves visibility there. So all of this map movement to that tee is literally just to justify that one little move, which is going to allow us to break the fairway. So it's worth always thinking about whenever you do some like a little move or a raise or a lower. If you're splitting a fairway, what's your reason for doing so? And like, can you make that move make sense by tying it in with other things? I have no doubt that that will need redoing a little bit better. Now you could make this, in terms of if you're making these sorts of ideas more interesting, what you would look at doing would be exaggerating the angles so that the holes are less straight on. That's why I say like difficulty plays a big factor. So, for example, if I wanted to make this more interesting, I could be sighting the green somewhere down here. Or suddenly then you want to be like how you approach the hole changes and angles matter more. Let's go with green spline. Because it's at grade, I don't really mind it being a little smaller. Maybe this needs to be a little bit bigger. It fills that space pretty nicely. Instead, I do kind of feel like it would be nicer over this side. There we go, just tucked there. And I am tempted to have a little bunker here, I think. Going wild. So not one that's going to impact hugely on play, but one you'd be wanting to skirt if you were rolling a ball onto the green, which is what we're trying to encourage, really. And yeah, we can do this neat there. Yep, that feels about right. Now we can mound this little bit up as well. I think we will be almost at our 20-minute mark as well. Pretty good going. And I can tie bunker in with the tee box, which is great. That makes a bit more sense. Lower the land beyond here just a little. Right, now as for the green itself, clear all of the measure tools. They're pretty straight away hole. If I wanted to, I could exaggerate the angle and just move the tee over here a little bit, which might add to the interest as well. So generally this is falling away a little too much for my liking. And once you start changing things, you start seeing some interesting bits. So I'm seeing, imagine if this bit were low. Yeah, we've got there. Now we can, so I'll just try and explain what I'm seeing with measure tools. So this little pocket here, or like a low part there would be interesting. We can have then kind of a spine running in towards that, just a little bit. And then the rest of it we can just deal with flatten. I still want you to be able to roll the ball onto the green. And again, trying to bring slopes in from off the surfaces as much as possible, because that helps people see that they're there. So I'm going to create almost this little channel there. Actually, I think that's a pretty interesting hole out of not very much. You got everything funneling in towards that there. Now I don't want the whole green flowing front to back even. I'm going to try and limit. That's better. They're still on the simpler side, but there's some interesting stuff there. We might try and, I don't know what I'll do with this back portion. Yeah. Anyway, I think that is a good point at which to hit pause on the timer. So, yeah, 7 minutes, 29 seconds. Not bad for this. So at the moment, what we've got is we've got holes 1 through 5 done-ish in terms of ideas. There's none of them I hate so far, which is good. One maybe needs a little bit more spicing up, but we'll figure that out. And this hillside will come in a bit more. 2 is interesting. 3 I think is interesting. We're playing with elevation. I think 5 actually. Just need to make sure that this works. So this might need a little bit of livening up. But that's quite fun. I think for a longer, or it's not that long, but basically means if you choose not to take on the tee shot, that's fine. One of the things I can always do as well is just mound up this bit so that it's kind of separating the two with like a bit of a spine. Perhaps that could be one way of working it. So yeah, I'll probably do another episode after this and look at 6 and maybe 7 as well. Yeah, hope you enjoy. See you soon.